Thank you very much, everybody, for coming back on time. We are going to have a very interesting discussion now, but before the discussion, we're going to have Mrs. Mularo Chibilinge to come and discuss the opportunities based on yesterday's discussion. I remember two questions that were raised during yesterday's program. The first one was, do you understand the solution? The second question was, do you understand the problem? So I believe from this discussion we'll be able to reach some sort of a conclusion. Womuraro, done.
And Yalibuwa, Program Director, and Nachfani Changano Chambers of the Bad. To those who don't understand, I said thank you very much. Program Director, she has pronounced my name very well, even my last name, by the way. So thank you for that. So the discussions really is going to be, I'm not going to present anything. I just have some notes on my computer here. We'll really take it as a point for you to note about potential opportunities, some of the challenges. I'll keep it very high level because this kind of discussions, they require that we have a workshop together in a different platform. As yesterday, we indicated that the GROWS workshop needs to be revamped in a way, to think of how we use it more to workshop the industrial problems and potential solutions or collaborative projects that we can work together. So that is still to come. But since we have been asked to say a little bit of, or mention some of our challenges and opportunities in this 30 minutes, which I will probably not use all of it. And then you'll have an opportunity to also engage the panel later. And I will really much open it to you guys to get your point from what I would have said. So basically, we all understand what our focus in Gibela today. We manufacture the trains. We have a specific customer. We also provide some technical support to this specific customer. One of biggest focus of this year is to work on our backlog and increase our outputs. Basically, that is to have train sets, 6 train sets per month. Something that has never been done anywhere in the world, by the way. So we are the first in this one. Today we are at 5 train sets per month. In the next 2 months, we are targeting to do this thing that has never been done before anywhere in the world. So what does that mean in terms of 6 train sets per month? It means that we need to ensure that our suppliers, the supply chain is gearing up also to the capacity that we need for the train sets, 6 train sets per month. Sorry, it's sort of tongue twister there. So we need them to also gear up to the same capacity that we expect to be at. And we are speaking about 2 months from now. We also need to ensure that we have the processes that are efficient to be quick enough in producing the 6 train sets per month. Just an idea, 6 train sets per month means that it's 2 cars per day. A train has 6 cars, so you can do the math. So We also have some challenges of late, by the way, with the Russian war, and other things that happened in some of our electronics industries. That is imposing another challenge on our side, which is on the electronics side, to get the components we need for our electronics components. This is not something that I will say that we can immediately solve, because it has to deal with the design, product design of our train, which sometimes, I'm talking about the electronics that you have for communication systems, for different functions that we need to read in our train. This requires a lot of work if we're to move away from certain technologies that we have. So this, for me, it's just something to think about, but could be a little bit difficult to work on. We do know that there's a lot of configuration management over the period of our contract. This speaks to obsolescence. Electronics gadgets, we know how their life is short. It means that you would have to manage some of the configurations of the systems that relies a lot on electronics. So how you set up this configuration is also something that also speaks to the supplier side. There was a presentation, I think it was Alice, she presented some real-time tracking of parts. That was an interesting, I did share that it was an interesting project for the kind of activities that we do, to be able to track parts life. In addition, you could think of adding how you can track the serialization of these parts. So you know that, okay, if I have a traction system, what is the kind of cards that are installed, of which version? You need to always know, because it means that the other version maybe needed to be retrofitted with a different electronic components, or it needs to be maintained a specific way. So all of that is some of the challenges that we need to deal with. Given that we also have a big volume of trains to produce over this long period, the part of doing maintenance is also a tricky situation. You would have different versions of trains. That means you must have a way of, when you are maintaining a bogie, you want to know how many mileage it has made, so that the maintenance that you apply to this bogie is not the same on the other train. So if you're going to swap them, you need to also know that I actually moved it from train set 1, now it's on train set 30. I need to continue to track its life so that I can continue to maintain it as it requires. Okay, so I'll just go back to my computer. So on the services side, we know that we need the trains to be available to the consumers, the commuters. It means that we need to find opportunities that will improve their experiences when they use our trains. So you could think of many things around the station themselves, but of course this is not directly something that Gibela deals with, but we can also be the facilitator on that side, to facilitate with the customer so that you can think of solutions that will improve their experiences with our trains. Train reliability is something that we need to really improve on, learn on. The trains have not been running. This is not something that is well known. They've been parked. We had COVID. Some services were suspended. It means now that we need the trains to run so that we can understand their reliability. And for those who understand the reliability practices, you would understand that the first few years of a component, which is around 2, you will have to deal with certain unforeseen events, and you need to respond faster. Of course, we also need to support in some areas. You could think of as an academic team, you could think of how you can support the depots to be ready for these trains. Maintenance strategies, we want to ensure that we move more on the on-condition maintenance activities. So think around those areas. Now, if we talk about supplier capacity, I think there's some few presentations that some of you have shared, and it's more looking at how do they produce on quality, how is their process repeatability in place, because they now need to respond to this quick, a high demand on our part. On-time delivery, how do we use the ALICE project, for an example, to drive this kind of need? On management side, line management, we have teams that are cross-functional team on a station. You would have the quality person working with an operator, working with the process engineer. And this team are there to support the operator to ensure that he's producing on quality. How do this team work together? What kind of processes can you think of? What kind of tools can you think of digitalizing their ways of managing the station? What type of real data can you gather? We have data, by the way. We might not have time to look into the details of this data, but maybe you might have time to look into this data and tell us something about it. I think Prof. In the morning did mention, Prof. Butala did mention about the European industry in terms of digitalization versus cyberization. Or is it cyberization? I forgot. But how do you then use our data to digitalize our processes? Mr. Nengelele, you had a very interesting presentation, and by the way, we shared a lot of interest into it, but we were asking ourselves, how does this project improve our situation towards the 6 train sets per month? How does the project that you're working on improve our CapEx focuses? What activities can we be doing on what station? What do we need to add? What do we need to subtract? Process optimization, actually, which is what you intend to be studying in the few months, you said, with the time studies that you're going to do. Also, in the factory, we want to have less downtime. That means the machineries in the factory needs to be maintained and fully operational. So we speak about preventive maintenance strategies for these machineries. What can you guys come and find opportunities in that area? This is for the machineries in the factory. How do we improve the reliabilities of these machineries? Are there things that you can propose to us? The way we set it up, the way we use the other technologies that we are not aware of that you can propose? Also, there's a lot of localization. We talk of localization in terms of parts, but we also talk of localization in terms of technical support, localization in terms of technologies. So what is technical support? So if I have a machinery in the factory or robot, do I need to call somebody from Europe? Or there is someone locally that we can call on? Do you know of any companies that are giving such services? Or can you create some of them? So these are the kind of things that you could think around. So there's product localization, so on some components, and then there is technology localization, and then there is technical support localization. So you can think about that. Sorry, my computer keeps on logging me off. So there is, since the trains have not been running for such a long time, there is also an opportunity on the part of on-condition maintenance. Today we have a lot of preventive maintenance on time or based on mileage. So could you think of some sensors that we need to use to collect some data on certain components. You can come and discuss with us to understand the architecture of our train, understand what type of data we have today, what other data we can collect today, or what can we deduce from the data we already have without additional sensors? What other software we can add into the existing system? Or do we need sensors, and the complexity around adding the sensors to ensure that we collect the data that will inform our own condition, machine learning. So how can we improve this part? I think in short, I'll leave it here. And Prof, I think this kind of discussion or workshopping about opportunities, it really needs us to have a different discussion in more time and with certain stakeholders, both from Gibela and TUT, so that we can come up together with some key projects that we can work together. And you would remember last year, Prof, we collected some of the projects, and mainly most of those projects were speaking around digitalization of management team, in real-time information. There were some few that were related to the product, some few related to the jigs on the floor, and some were related to more training, multi-skilling of our teams, our operators. Can we use the project that virtual reality technology that it gives us? Can we use that opportunity to multi-skill our team while we try to do it more virtually and less time of their operation? Is there something we can do around that? So, and in terms of processes, are we wasting some of our, is our processes have a lot of, do they have a lot of wastage? Can you study our processes and inform us how we can improve them with the tools that the industrial engineers you have in your disposal? So I think it's really to say, you're invited to come and see what we are lacking, and we can always facilitate any other opportunities with the customers needs to be facilitated through us, so we can always have that facilitation. I hope I have covered some of the things that we think it's relevant. And I also want to just say, this is our country. I think last year we had a speaker around innovation for your surrounding or your country, something like that. I think it was Prof. I forgot his name, but it could have been in a more open discussion. I think so. For me, I always think that we have more opportunities on how to use the train. This is on the service side. How to use the train. The infrastructure is ours. We own the infrastructure. We know it better. The problems that the commuters experiences is the things that we know. So when you understand the problem, you'll probably even find solutions around those. No one outside us is able to come with solutions for our own home. So we have to come up with those solutions to our problems. So I will encourage you to also expand yourself beyond just the manufacturing. Expand yourself to the experiences of the commuters. Even yourself, maybe you have someone close to you who have used our current infrastructure. What are we experiencing? What can be done the thefts we have, what can be done about it? What technologies can you come up with that can prevent what's going on today? What about our stations? Is there something you can think around that? So let's not think about it only in the Gibela context. Let's expand our thinking on the end user, and then also from the supplier side. You're welcome to have a view of what are those suppliers we can discuss. And then what are some of the challenges we experience with them, we can discuss that. You are also welcome to get more details on the other side as well. We can discuss that, but I don't think it's something that I'll share just now. So, but you are welcome to have these discussions. Okay, I'll end here.
Yeah, I'm going to stand here with Mercy. She's not going anywhere.
Okay.
We are together in this thing. So I think your round of applause was not enough. I think obviously, there are technicalities around, speaking a lot at this stage. Obviously, the team hasn't had time to go back and caucus, and identify specific projects. So I take it that there will be that effort to go and define those projects, especially with the judges, reflecting on some of the presentations that they've heard. And so they have a sense of what is going on under the research chair and what could be closely related or need a bit of tweaking and then fit into a specific context. So I think it's fair to give you guys that time. Obviously, at this stage, like you said, it's very high level, which is fantastic. At least everybody in the room has a sense that the train is moving. I mean, we spoke about this yesterday. It's not even 24 hours after we spoke about it. And there is a sense that, there are areas that we are seeing where there's possibilities. We just need to define them properly. But I think what is important, given all our busy lives, is that I think it would be fair for us to agree on some time frame of that workshop. Because obviously we've got people who are at the beginning of their PhDs, both from the Gibela side as well as from the TUT side. And it would be great if those projects become available, at least in the next 4 weeks. I'm now talking in terms of the practicality of, I don't know whether that's too high ask for the team at Gibela to sit and agree. Maybe these are the specific things that the guys need to look into. Then we have that workshop where ourselves from TUT and guys from Gibela can, set up a day where we come and, just engage on that specific thing. It could be a morning, could be an afternoon, it could be the whole day, depending on how long the list is. But there are several people, when I look around the room, either for their postdoctoral fellows or for their doctorates or for their masters, who are hungry for projects, and we don't want them to spend any time on things that are not necessarily going to, add value to the partnership. So I don't know if it's too hard an ask to say, let's, not maybe be categorical about the date, but, focus that in a month's time, then at least, all of us here know that there's an element of accountability that we need to hold each other to. Yes. And then with that, then no questions, except if, I see, our executive dean acting executive dean, wants to express himself, so I'll give him a chance. Must I give him first, or must she go first, Prof, or you speak first?
I'll let him speak first.
No, thank you very much, Mr. Shvilinge and Prof. Pofu. I want to agree, and just along the lines that Prof has mentioned, This partnership needs to work for both sides. And as you said, there are students hungry for projects. I know industrial engineering management, for example, you've got coursework and then the project follows up to that. Some of the projects could be at a structured master's level that we call it. Some of the projects could be full research masters or doctorate or even postdoc. And I would want to suggest that let there be that 4-week window, for example, where the projects are identified. But I also want to suggest the chair's been running for 6 years now, and we've got a steering committee that meets every quarter. Maybe at this stage we need to have a technical committee as well that might then need to be meeting, if need be, more frequently than the steering committee, and it addresses only technical matters because the industry requires technical solutions. Yes. So if we then structure that projects have been identified, they have been assigned to researchers and students, and maybe we expand beyond industrial engineering, but there's a technical committee, even if it's 3 and 3 or 2 and 2 on either side, but technical, that you come to the table and you discuss project matters, technical matters, where we are there challenges, how can they be addressed on TUT side, on Gibela side, so that we make that really work for both parties. So for me, I think that will be very important. But the earlier we do that, the better, because if we are going to assign them to students now from a practical point of view, our students then register in January and July. So then you want to give them projects so that as they come in, you advertise, we've got projects, please join. So they come with projects in mind, not looking for projects where they are in the system already. So the sooner the better, and I agree. If 4 weeks can work, I'll agree with that. This is May, so that by July, if you're taking new students, already there's a process in place. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prof. I agree with the technical committee. It's very relevant. And since you are focusing July to take in new students, to answer to your question, Prof. Mpofu, regarding when can we have these projects written down, we can try mid-July? Mid-July, team at the back? June? Oh, okay. They say June. Okay, challenge taken. June, Prof. The thing is, I shared that we have some areas of opportunities. Internally, we do yearly workshops internally to have some projects that we need to work on. And some of them, we put them at the back because we don't have resources. So to get these projects, I don't think it's going to be that difficult. The ones that are really adding value to our operations, it's not going to be that difficult. And I think in terms of the academic requirements, where you need a master's that spends how many, 2 years? Yeah, so we might have challenges because we might want to have those answers within a year. So you should just understand in that manner that sometimes we want a project that you need to work it in a year or in 6 months. Yeah, but we will indicate what we think the projects can fit into. Prof has another question or comment.
Yes, just to come back, because there are also areas where we also make mistakes as a university. We've got full research projects, and we've got what we call structured master's projects, mini dissertation, which normally take more industry kind of angle to it, and in our assessment, then we still stick to that academic rig and so on. So if we know this is what really needs to happen, a structured master's project can take up to 6 months because the scope is different from a normal. So we say that, yes, we've got an industry partner. Yes, we need to deliver. yes, some of these projects we're talking about are not really full research, but of an industry nature that can be delivered in 6 months, and we work towards that. The only thing is where you need to do ethics clearance, for example, then we know again the industry will give permission to use data from the industry. So working together, we can then speed up that process. I happen to be the chair of our faculty committee for research ethics, so anything we can do then to speed up the process. But from a university point of view, we need to open our minds and say, this is not the normal 3-year PhD or 4-year, but industry needs something delivered within the shortest time possible. It's a structured master's project that can be done within that scope, and we scope it appropriately. Thank you.
Thank you. By the way, while he's taking the mic to the next speaker, I don't know if there's someone to still speak. The structure in terms of our projects, we actually started it last year with Prof and some team in Gibela. We can just build onto that and enforce it. And in the past, I know that there were some concerns about data access and so on. And I think this technical team now needs to work on that part. Not all the data that you need is going to just be given without maybe some legal implications or legal things that we need to take care of. So you should just keep that in mind as well. So I think we also need Prof to work on that area.
What I'm trying to tell, it's sort of a concern. One of the difficulties as students are facing. One thing that I saw as an individual, I saw that we can sit behind a computer and do our work, have the data, do our work, but you don't have the actual thing, whereby that data or whatever that is being simulated can come into the actual reality. So what I'm trying to say to you is that I think as a team, it is time maybe we develop a workshop. We develop a route whereby the workshop will be there, and that workshop will assist us into developing the components that are needed by the industry. So my question to you is how can the Gibela team assist us into developing a workshop that will be utilized by the student to develop the commercial use of components, or to develop the components that are needed by the industry? Thank you very much.
Okay, let me take that, or you want to take it? Let me take it.
I'm suggesting that let's have both of the questions and then we deal with them at the same time.
Okay. Thank you. Good day, everyone. Greetings to all, protocol observed. Yeah. South Africa, we greet in this country. Yeah, so I have more of a, I guess, a clarity question, slash comment. From a clarity premise though, for enterprises who or which already have, small enterprises that already have, such as myself, that have solutions which address Gibela's highlighted priority areas, especially given the urgent capacity increase and the related network effect from a supply chain and OEM, bill of material requirement side. Would Ramseri be the go-to for an enterprise to try and work and with, in synergy with Gibela to try and address this?
Okay. They seem to be slightly related. So you spoke about getting a workshop that can allow the opportunity to develop some product, right? Yeah. So I think Ramseri is there to incubate students, right? And I understand they have some of the facilities that can be used for you to prototype your projects. I'm not sure if you're aware of that. The manager was here, I don't see him now. The center manager was here, so I don't see him now. Now, coming to you, so there is a procurement process in Gibela that one needs to adhere to. And I don't think I should give you a direct answer to that question because you will need to, it's either we have a need and then we go out for a request for quotes, RFQ process. So it's not something that I can say that if you're proposing something, there's also a process for that. So the procurement department deals with such matter. For Ramseri, I think there's a different process that we also need to speak to as well, which again, the procurement team needs to be involved.
Fantastic. So thank you very much, Mercy. But I want to go back to what our executive dean has said. In terms of that technical committee that will feed into the steering committee, I think let's have a discussion over lunch because it's a steering committee matter and we can finalize it from there. But the rest of us here, what we can take away is that there will be a technical committee that will be officially endorsed by the steering committee, and the steering committee, fortunately, Humutso, when are we sitting? Steering committee? In a few weeks' time. Okay, so in the next, less than a month's time, the steering committee will be sitting, so it will be great that by that time, we sort of have found ourselves around the proposal, so that we propose something and we also maybe have a pager of the terms of reference of that specific technical committee to feed into the activities of the steering committee where the things are going to be approved and endorsed. Is that okay? It's in 2 weeks' time. So it means that that train needs to move so that at least we don't lose much time, given that we're also saying that a lot of things need to be set in motion. I think it's reasonable. We are here. I think the three of us sit in the steering committee so we can sit essentially and sort of, have something going so that by the time the steering committee does sit, we have a proposal that makes sense. Is that reasonable?
Mm-hmm.
Super. And for me, I also think that this is not a train that is starting to move today. We've got historic activities that have been taking place. We're just finding a way and mechanisms and structures within how we've been working to make these things work more efficiently and effectively. So it's not like we're starting something from scratch. We're actually plugging into a process that is already existing and saying how are we fine-tuning our systems and making it work efficiently as industrial engineers. Thank you. I don't know if Messi has got any more comments, but I would like to, sort of like allow us to, park this now, allow the conversations to take place at that level, but also all of us be informed that, in at least the next month, I should come back to the research team and be able to say that this is where we are at in terms of the issues on picking up the opportunities and the challenges, so that you are also clear and you can also hold us to account as we move forward.
Prof, I would just mention something. The point around sponsorship, for any projects that we're going to come up with, I will ensure that there is a sponsor for it internally. That makes it easier for access of information, for review of what you have written, if it's okay for public consumption, for support in entering the factory. So without a sponsorship, these other things that you need to support your studies will not be easy. Access to the factory will not be easy, access to data will not be easy, and you will just add another file into the bookshelf of the library.
Thank you, Mercy. But I'm also recognizing that maybe you mustn't go, Mercy, so that you don't have to exercise a lot, isn't it?
Is it?
Yes. So we are going to be calling the panel now, but in the process of calling that panel, I don't know whether Luvu is speaking to the points that we discussed yesterday. I think we must open that can of worms now. I think it's the appropriate time when, all our minds are at this state. Is he going to come with a list? At least there's also somebody else who's speaking. It's not just the two of us.
The list is clear. We know the list, Prof.
We know the list.
Yeah, we know
Okay.
the list.
So you will speak to the list of the things that we have agreed yesterday. But then, after she has spoken to the list, the honorable members who came today, they must listen very attentively because this list is directed at them from the way that we conceptualized it. And then we will call them up to the front to come and sit the panel, but they can also caucus in terms of how they are responding to that list. And then we'll have the panel discussion. So we are standing here together in a symbolic way that this is something that both parties spoke to and agreed to yesterday. And we think that it's a reasonable way forward. And we definitely want to hear from, the leaders that we have in the GROWS workshop on what their thoughts are, I think very frankly. And I must say that the conversation was very deep and very frank, that this is where maybe we think we are missing it. But if you've got other points that you want to say, maybe you forgot 6, 7, and 8, let's have those points on the floor so that through the technical committee, and also maybe when we go to the steering committee, some of the points that need to be addressed at that level are then spoken to at the steering committee and addressed appropriately. So over to you, Mercy.
Hey, Prof, today you're putting me on the spot, huh? Yeah. Just to summarize the points from yesterday, panel discussion, it was mainly around how do we accelerate the adoption of technology and what are the things we need to do to ensure that we accelerate this adoption. We spoke around the point which I just said now, which is the sponsorship, the importance of sponsorship. I see a lot of students studying. Even last year, they presented their work, but what they were missing was the connection between what's happening in the industry and what they are studying. So the relevance of their study was not aligned. So having that sponsorship is one key point. We also said that as much as you have a sponsorship, you have identified the activity that you want to do to solve a specific problem, you also need to ensure that you have a timeline. Industry moves fast. We have our bottom lines, which is to deliver our product to our customers as fast as we can. So if the project is taking longer, we might just move without them, so the train might leave them behind. So it's very important to plan and align with the sponsor who is in the industry to say, by the time you finish your project, there is a chance that we'll implement it. Or there is a certainty that it will be implemented, so that we guide with a benchmark of a project timeline. So if it's to take it a year, then it means that you must have regular meetings with the student and the sponsor to check where the project is, and also to align with what's happening in the industry. So there was also the point around solving a problem, not just having a project because you want to get a certificate for your master's, your PhD, but it's also to solve real problem in the industry. So this was then to say that you need to really identify these problems. But I think we are happy with that element, Prof, because we just answered that by June, we would at least give a view of some of the projects that can be worked on. So in short, this is what was said yesterday. There was then the other element that was brought up by the center manager, which was the incubation center manager, which was about entrepreneurship. We teach our students more around getting their qualification and for them to be employed, but we forget to teach them about entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurial skills is very key. Some of the projects that you are working on might need you to sell it to a non-technical person. How do you sell those projects? You need to understand that you need at some point to commercialize it. How do you commercialize it? What are the costs involved? What are the benefits to a business for such projects? So not only the projects will be coming from the side of the industry, some of them might born from you, meaning that you have to learn how to sell it. So if you cannot sell it, unfortunately, it cannot be bought. So you need to have this additional skill, which is key, entrepreneurial skill. So this was what I think was shared, Prof.
Yes, thank you very much, Mulalo. I think the rest of us were there as well. Do you think that there's something that you missed? Okay, so I'll summarize again in case the colleagues who are joining us today. Yes, you can go, ma'am. Thank you. Planning and alignment. And then we spoke about opportunities and problems. We also spoke about restructuring the growth. And then we spoke about the sponsorship program. And I want to emphasize that the sponsorship program, most of the times when people talk sponsorship, they think money. Sponsorship program in terms of having a person who's an industrial practitioner who will work closely with the researcher to make sure that at the end of the day, that information that the researcher needs is actually readily accessible and they can easily go to that person. But there's also structures to make sure there's some escalation if maybe there's a bottleneck in terms of what needs to happen. So with those comments, I would like to call Mr. Komako and Mr. Bambo, because they'll be part of our panel, to come and give us that, executive response. You can give them a round of applause as they prepare themselves. So maybe I must also, as they are coming, make use of the time to appreciate them for taking time out of their busy schedule. They've got trains to deliver. But for me, their presence here is a sign that they are taking the work that is being done in the research chair very seriously, and they want to ensure there is a contribution that the chair is making, not just in terms of skills, but also in terms of technology that will support the industrialization project. So I'm going to hand over to Ntate Komako just to respond on the last elements and the 3 points that we've raised with Mercy, and what the thinking there is, and if they think that there's anything that we missed, then they can also just, put it to the fore so that that is also taken care of. Thank you.
Is it almost the afternoon? Good morning. Like I said, I'm quite excited to be here and sitting here before you. Just to reflect on what my colleagues have alluded to, I think indeed if we can focus on the pointers that have been highlighted, we'll continue to be on the right track. I've listened to the keynote speaker in the morning, and for me it was quite interesting that where we are in terms of our understanding or our paradigm, we are still emphasizing and focusing on concepts that are about to be, you could say, obsolete, as he has indicated, that our focus is still more on optimization, yet we need to switch to innovation. But the main question is that I will ask, from a relevance perspective, where are we as a country? Where are we as compared to European countries? We are in the process of revitalizing an industry that has been neglected for years, okay, versus other countries where they are quite advanced, okay? So it goes to a point of we need to answer to the problems that we have at hand. And the problems that we have at hand is that transport, okay, as a solution is not yet adopted as a primary mode of transport. Rail transport is not yet adopted or perceived as a primary mode of transport. I can make an example. All of us here came with our cars. Majority of us, any household, minimum, we have 2 cars. But when last did we all take a train? Whom of us has taken a train in the last, let me make it simple, in the last month? Can we raise our hands? We have 1. Thank you very much for supporting this industry. The past 6 months, how many of us have taken any train, whether it's GROWS2022, it's a Gibela train, any train? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, not so bad. I think my point is made clear. Ne? How many of us are taking a train to work? Let me simplify it. To work or school? None of us. Okay, I think I've made my point. So we as a project, ne, as Gibela, we are not working in silo. We are a solution to the government cry out, right? To say, we need to revive this industry, okay? And revival of the industry is not only looking at the train. We know there's an infrastructure, okay, aspect to it, but for me, moreover, it's about the value chain, the supply chain. We're working with suppliers that have existed or are existing because of Gibela, okay? So it then means we need to work very closely with them to really understand their problems. Because Messi indicated that this beautiful country, we are going to be a country that produces trains faster than any other country in the world. Meaning eventually, we will be a hub of solutions. They will want to come to us and see, what is it that you are doing? And only focusing on Gibela, you know, as the end recipient of these components, it would not help. Because we need suppliers to move in the same pace as us. So we know that we have obviously all the support, you know, from our, you know, major shareholder. They are industrially well-renowned for making trains. So the challenge is, we that are here, what is it that we are going to do to make sure that our suppliers move in the same pace as us from a quality, delivery, and moreover cost optimization perspective. So I'm trying to say, let us gauge where we are, as much as the models that we are probably still emphasizing are about to be obsolete, but unfortunately, where we are today, we still need to focus on the basics, which is, you know, optimization. And yes, we cannot ignore the importance of innovation and technology. For me, it is very, very important that as much as we are trying to pick up, you know, the suppliers and Gibela as a project, we also need to have that in mind, that without innovation and technology, we are basically going nowhere. So I'm actually, I don't know what happened yesterday, but I sense it was an interesting day. But from what I get, I fully align with what we need. Ne? We need sponsorship, we need to support, we need to commit. And that's why we are here. And we do commit that within a month, we will have projects. Ne? within a month, we will have projects and we dedicate ourselves. It's not a blah, blah, blah. We do dedicate ourselves. Thank you. I'll give over to Ezra.
Thank you very much. I thought that I was going to hear a very loud clap from this side. So, our panel, I think that needs no comment. It's just a matter of us saying, let's pick up the baton stick and run with what we have committed to. And this is why we are here, to commit to, getting this relationship to work, but most importantly, promoting rail transport as a preferred mode of transportation. And that is for all of us. So the next time you're going somewhere, think about it, Ask yourself the question, can I use the train? Is it possible? It may not necessarily be possible, but in some instances it is possible. It's just that it's never the option on the table. So I think we really need to think about it and not just talk, but walk the talk. Because it's us here, on those days when there's the points that I'm going to be, engaging at, there's an option of a train, that I have that experience. Because, it's as simple, and for me, I think it starts from there. It starts with us here, because at least we are doing research on trains. There are people who don't have a clue that there are trains in this country. There are people who only think that the only thing that is available, is a short lift. That's the only mode of transport that is available. That's the only thing that they know is transport. But we here who are researching, at least if we embrace and we, begin to celebrate the infrastructure that we have as we do our connections from one place to the next, I think it's a starting off point, and I think it becomes even real for ourselves in the work that we are doing, rather than it being a pie in the sky. So having done that, I think the important conversation around this is, yes, we must get projects. But as we get those projects, Mulalo spoke about these projects gathering dust in the library. The intention is that those projects don't become gather dust in the library, one. Secondly, those projects create opportunities for entrepreneurial students. And that's was a topic that we discussed quite extensively yesterday. When you talk about going to the university, no one thinks about you coming out as somebody who's a technopreneur or technology entrepreneur. Everyone thinks about you must, so you're going to be looking for internship in the next couple of days. We are saying that with us coming here and spending time here, how can we create that revolution when the next time people hear that you're going to university, their understanding is that when you come out, you're running to be the next Elon Musk. And at the core of this project, this is what this project is about, and this is why we've deliberately taken this time to say, let's partner with Gibela, let's look for people who are like-minded, so that, we don't hear about Elon Musk on TV, but you can actually say that, there's a place where I assessed, a person was presenting on their research. I gave them a couple of advice, they took it very seriously, and they have moved to a place where a student would have never dreamed they would have been at without that industrial advice. So for us, that conversation, and because that conversation is important, we are walking the talk. So I want to invite some of our entrepreneurs who are in the room to come and join us here in the panel, because we are going to sort of move in that direction a bit, so that we just emphasize the point that, yes, this is about skills development, but also at the same time, it's about technologies that must go to industry. And we do have prototypes that need to be taken to that industrial space. So I'm going to start off by calling Ms. Modise. So Ms. Modise presented yesterday on energy efficiency and carbon efficiency, which are very critical conversations when you look at COPE and what has been happening there. So she has an energy efficiency meter that she has developed, prototyped, and she's busy now with applications to try and assist ESCOM to go back to be ESCOM and not ESCOM. And then I'm going to call Mr. Skosana. I think Mr. Skosana was spoken about by Mercy earlier on. So he's developing virtual reality content We were speaking about the traction motor project the other day. Actually, at the launch of the traction motor, and for me, this one is a commitment. I think, Messi, you remember that. At the launch of the, Skosana, as you are coming, your shoes were off. Yes, put on those shoes, please. This is the part where you need the shoes. There was a commitment from one of the executives at Gibela with respect to us exploring how we can use virtual reality to train people as the traction motor manufacturing gets intensive. So how can we use virtual reality to be a platform that we can? And so we are actually in contact with the executive, and they've said that maybe by end of June we should set up a meeting, because apparently there were things that were happening between the first half of the year. So there is a commitment there, and there is something that is in motion. So Skosana is busy with that virtual reality, and each of these individuals that I'm calling here to the front, they have a registered enterprise which is sitting in the incubator, and we are saying these young people are young people who are not your ordinary graduate. They're graduates who are looking to create employment for other graduates. And that's why we need to have this conversation today as we put these pieces together and see how we are planning and aligning all these things. I'm also going to call Mr. Chifularu to join us from Productivity SA. They've got a very important part to play in the work that takes place in this space. And we have been discussing with them as well in terms of trying to see how we can work together. And because he's here, I think it's only fair for us, to engage him and get also his views on how we can make this ecosystem work. Because this ecosystem is not going to be made to work by only two partners. It needs all the partners that it needs. So, Mr. Chifularu, your contribution here will be much appreciated. If you can please come and occupy one of the seats. And then I'm going to call Mr. Saka. Mr. Saka was also, involved in the GROWS project, so he's also got a part to contribute here, and then we'll get our panel going. Thank you very much. Is there still another chair, or the chairs are finished? We can always make a plan. There's one more chair. Oh, Howell is coming? Okay, super. So I'm going to start off with the entrepreneurs and the work that they have been doing in the spaces that they have been in. And I'm going to give them 2 minutes each. So you need to be to the point. And you need to think through what you need to say, because you have 2 minutes. I will stop you if you don't stop by yourself. So the first question that I want to put to the entrepreneurs is, can you express one thing that you have attempted and has worked? One thing that you have attempted in your enterprisingness and has worked. One, just one thing. I know maybe there could be many things that have worked, but just the one thing that you've attempted and has worked, okay? Express that thing in one sentence. And then the second one is, what has not worked? Okay, so we'll start off on the positive end, or we must start off on the negative one and end with the positive one. Start off with what has not worked and then end with what has worked. Okay, super. So we'll start off with Skosana, the one thing that you've attempted that has worked, that has not worked, and the one thing that you've attempted that has worked in terms of, taking your technology to market. Or in terms of being an entrepreneur, it doesn't have to be specifically taking your technology to market.
Okay, thank you, Prof. We've been attempting a lot of things, and some succeeding, some not succeeding. And being in a university incubator, what has worked is being around skilled people. So being in the tech space, you are around people who can develop the solution. But then what doesn't work is that now you're a student and then you're selling something to the university and they don't take you serious because all you are to them is a student. So that does not work because universities need to start seeing us as partners and not people that, you know, as their products, just students. So that transition is not working. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Kosana. So I'll just reiterate for the sake of emphasis, what has worked is being around skilled people because they can help you, you know, you take the technology forward. But what has not worked is selling to the university. That has been a pain. Okay, super. Prof. Munda, I know you sit at some of the strategy sessions. I know there are policies around all these things, but I think if these policies are not working for us, we really need to ask ourselves, what is working what? Is the tail wagging the dog? Or the dog must wag the tail? And yesterday we said that we need to be frank to ourselves. If there are things that we are missing them. You know, let's accept, let's concede that we are missing this. Then we know we need to work on it until it works. If there are things that we are getting right, you know, let's celebrate them and move forward. But if there are things that are also, you know, like the tail wagging the dog, then we must deal with them. You know, I know it's going to be difficult. I know we are casting our ways as university, but we really need to have frank conversations for us to move forward and ensure that our unemployment problems are dealt. So thank you, Kosana, for keeping to time. You are precisely on the mark, you know. So you are very business-like. That's very much appreciated. Charles, what has worked, what has not worked for item number 7?
Prof, thank you. I'm Charles, director of item number 7. So what haven't been working? From my side, I see it as researchers, I'm a researcher, you get many people that are less action-orientated, and it's one of the most frustrating things. As researchers as well as being in business, working with researchers sometimes is one of the biggest challenges. You want to get to the bottom of things, and people are not action-orientated. What have been working is that if you're a go-getter, you take out the red tapes. What Kosana was saying about having a lot of red tapes from university, it has been one of those things. So from my side, what has been working for me is that I've just stopped sitting in front of a computer and just getting my hands dirty, because at the end of the day, we have engineers. This room is full of engineers. But those engineers, they just know what's in the book. So we need to have those kind of engineers and entrepreneurs that can get their hands dirty. Take out your computers, put them in the trash can, and let's just get moving. That's what's been working for me for the past couple of 18 months, maybe, more or less. And that was thanks to the Gibela project, that actually, the GROWS project, those that were, Mr. Ezra was part of the team. It was one of the most challenging things. So I had to go and review those things to say, we need to just get out of our books, and as much as we have all the knowledge, let's make that knowledge works as TUT. Thank you, Prof.
Thank you very much, Charles. You're slightly over time. You can do better next time. I will proceed to my energy. What has not worked for you and what has worked perfectly in the things that you've attempted as an entrepreneur.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Gaugelo Modise, Director of My Energy. I think the alignment of Ramseri, or maybe the operation of the incubator, has not really worked for me, because in terms of the business, you've got your technology readiness level, you've got your market readiness level, and then also you've got your business readiness level. So in most cases, those three, they actually go they go concurrently, yeah. So, but now the challenge is that the technology is at a certain level. Now, in terms of market readiness level and your business readiness level, that's where the incubator is. It's actually supposed to come on board, and work with us in terms of that. So that, for now, with regards to, as an entrepreneur, that has not worked for me. And then what has worked is it's actually the support that we get from, again, it goes back to what Charles said. It's the support around your technology that it's developed. It's Kosana. The researchers, specifically for the team of energy efficiency, I must say that the team from the energy efficiency side, we're very effective. So that specifically, and the support of getting the stakeholders to come on board, and also checking our technologies, and promising us something that the following day it's not there. That has worked a bit. So yeah, thank you, Prof.
Fantastic. Super. So, again, I think it's coming up that there's a part that is working, like the technology, getting the hands dirty and having skilled people around. So I think all these speak to the same point, because for you to take the technology forward, you need to have the people who have the skills to advance the technology, to develop the prototype, experiment with it, play around with it, and then maybe begin to provide a service or sell it here and there. So that has worked. But on the other hand, you're saying that maybe our incubator needs a bit of attention to support in terms of the other readiness levels. So Martin is not here, but the MENCOM members are here. And I think the MENCOM members, Dr. Dan, where are the other doctors? Dr. Mobunzi. We need to have a head-on discussion with Martin with respect to that. I'm aware that, and the board members who are here, I know there are a couple of board members who are here, that the incubator did have problems with CEDA, because CEDA is also not understanding what the incubator is about, our incubator specifically. And I think maybe that could have also not really helped us much. But as it stands here, I think the chair of the board actually signed some support that is coming from CEDA, which was maybe making it not really work properly. And hopefully, even with that technical committee that we are proposing that reports to the steering committee, maybe we can have elements there that could also speak to the incubator supporting, whether it's market readiness and etc., and business readiness levels, so that the technology readiness doesn't go ahead and the business readiness is still, running behind. Those things happen concurrently and the business is able to move forward. So I think those are things that we can resolve. But I want to hear from the leaders on the panel. Maybe we can start off with Productivity SA, their views. I mean, they work with SMEs quite extensively, and they've been busy having a drive to say, how do we support SMMEs in terms of these things that our SMMEs have raised, and what the view is from Productivity SA, and maybe more importantly, not just what the view is from Productivity SA, but how can maybe Productivity SA see themselves also playing a role in what we are doing here? Because, like we've said, it takes a village to raise the child. And these small businesses that, you know, are sitting here and telling their stories are businesses who do have technology, you know. So they have produced technology, they have provided some services somewhere, you know, to somebody. It's just that maybe at this point, they are not maybe getting the traction that they anticipated to get, you know, and how can we get around these things and deal with some of the questions that they are raising. Over to you, sir.
Thanks, Prof. Mpofu, and greetings once more. Firstly, I must indicate that I'm here as a member of the advisory committee for the Industrial Engineering Department. So I represent colleagues from industry. I think I should make that one very clear. As the advisory committee, we're actually very excited about the debates that is taking place right now. Because really, the reason why you have an industrial advisory committee is the realization that the university is really preparing people to add value in the industry. You know, whether they are coming there as human resource or as entrepreneurs. And for that to happen effectively, it means there need to be alignment. The university needs to know what the needs and expectations of businesses are. And I really like the first keynote speaker that we listened to today, where he was indicating that people are busy really with obsolete things, you know, when the world has moved at a very fast pace, which means if we continue on that trajectory, we actually make ourselves irrelevant. So we should be aware what are the emerging trends, you know, within industry, and how can as a university be relevant and add value in order to close whatever gaps that industry might perhaps have. So that becomes a very important thing. However, one other thing that I've seen as a huge gap is the fact that the governance systems within a university setup and governance setups within various industries, you know, including government entities such as SOEs. One is to understand that. For instance, if you are talking about taking your concept, you know, to a commercialization stage, you should appreciate that there's governance around that particular space. Industry don't just jump, you know, on anything that have to involve money, because they have to account for every single cent that have to be released. They also have to be fair, depending on what actually governs them. So I usually find that sometimes that is really the main issue. That you're sitting here maybe having a wonderful idea, and you're expecting company A to jump and do 1, 2, 3, but without appreciating that there is a governance framework that they operate within. I think it was Ms. Chiviringo who was responding to one question here, you know, which has to do with procurement. It's a big thing, particularly in South Africa. You know, we have spent years, you know, watching and listening to the commission, you know, largely around this particular issue, which means you need to familiarize yourself with various industry players as to what governance framework do they work within, and how do you really access those opportunities in a manner that will be ethical, in a manner that will also be fair, because sometimes most of the frustrations is primarily based on that. As the industry advisory committee, you know, beside the research element, we are involved in the entire value chain within the department. You know, for instance, we ensure that we try to listen from industry with regard to opportunities so that our students do not end up as unemployed graduates, for instance. You know, that there are opportunities for them to be placed to actually get their hands dirty, you know, so that that gap is actually bridged between the university and the industry. And we are making some progress, and I think Gibela at the moment within the department is playing a major role. You know, the numbers are there for everyone to see, and we have found other opportunities as well to actually close that gap. On the research aspect, I mean, from productivity SA side, we've indicated we've had many sessions with the chair to say we are in touch with many players because we are like a consulting services, largely within the manufacturing sector. We have many players, particularly in SMMEs. We know what's going on there, and then we need to be empowered with regard to what is coming out of your research, you know, that is ready to actually enter the market, you know, so that our practitioners are aware of these things, and then when they encounter a problem that matches the developments within research, then they can be able to marry the researcher and that particular enterprise, you know, so that you can be able to take that process further. So that opportunity is there. But for the university also, I mean, we can assist in terms of also highlighting what other research opportunities are out there, depending on the kind of problems that we're actually solving. So I actually liked the earlier discussion where Gibela is indicating that, of course, they have this annual conference where they list a number of projects, and some they cannot get them done because of resources or 1, 2, 3. And I think that's a good step forward, because if you have that, it means even the academia will be able to have projects that are ready. You know, when you have students, because one of the biggest headache of students, because some of them have never been to the world of work, is to try and come up with a project that will really add value to the industry, because all they've exposed to by that stage is the textbook, so you cannot blame them. But if industry are able to say, this is the kind of things that we want you to attend to, you know, that creates a synergy that we actually want to see. Imagine if many other industry players can actually do that. The university will actually be overwhelmed. They won't have sufficient students to actually handle the challenges that are out there. But the value that it adds, it means that your research is no longer a push system, you know, where you are pushing certain things, you know. And the reason why you are being told some are gathering dust, it means that you are basically pushing something that perhaps the industry was not in need of, you know. Maybe you are working on obsolete things, as the other prof have indicated earlier. But when it comes to the industry, it means there's a demand for it. So it's going to be adopted. Actually, you will be under pressure, which is what I understand the discussion yesterday were all about. Uri, you are talking about 3-4 years. We want this thing yesterday. You know, that's how, unfortunately, industry work. Because you have to retain your market share and grow it. You don't grow it by promising it that you will do something in 3 years' time. You know? So that's quite a challenge. But what the acting dean is suggesting is actually very useful, because perhaps our attention have been focused on this 3-4 years kind of research, whereas there's opportunity within structured research, which is quite short in terms of time frames, because I understand in structured the part of the weight will be on courses that they've done, which means research is just a shorter portion that they need to do, which means those are quicker things. and might actually respond to some of the challenges with regard to the timelines and the speed by which we actually deliver value. That should actually be looked at. And I'm also excited by this realization that this partnership should go beyond just our department. You know, I was happy to see somebody presenting from Polymer, for instance. You know, because when industry look at you, they're not looking at the department. They're looking at an institution. You know, which means that there need to be that collaboration with other departments, even within the university, to make sure that the industry gets the best of what TUT can offer to the industry, be it in electrical, in mechanical, in operations, or any other area, or IT, for instance. Because if you look at the nature of problems that industry have, they are multifaceted. They go across many domains. They are not limited to a particular silo, which means it's the challenge to the university to make sure that somehow the silos have to be collapsed. They need to be talking to their colleagues, you know, because they need each other to actually make a dent to the problems and challenges that industry actually have. So with those few words, I think, you know, I've tried to map out, you know, what some of the opportunities might be and what we need to do. But it needs a paradigm shift for both of us. You know, we need to make sure that we are here now, and we need to make sure that the challenges of today are addressed as soon as possible. There's very little impatience within industry as things currently stand. But we are saying there should be ways of meeting both objectives of the university and of the industry by just understanding how each other actually operate and what mechanism we can put in place. Because, for instance, why are lecturers not being given opportunities also to do projects within industry? Even if they are doing undergraduate students, if they can supervise them when they're teaching them about certain concepts, say, let's go and do projects in company A. Then, you know, those students, by the time they graduate, you know, they will be a better fit to the industry because they have a taste of what the real work of working is like. Because I think it's also a disadvantage when you are in the academia, but you have very little interaction with the real world. Because what if industry have moved beyond the textbook that you are using as your reference point? So there should be that ongoing exchanges and interaction, and we should promote that, and we should build flexibility in our programs to make sure that chemistry actually take place. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you for your liberality, you know. I think there are quite a number of valid points there. But I want us to build up on maybe that point of lecturers interacting with industrial projects, but then maybe related to the challenges that the entrepreneurs have spoken about. And I'll ask Ezra maybe to speak to that. As a reminder, the challenges that were spoken to was the issue of selling to university has not worked. So it means that selling to Gibela has worked, ne? You can't cough here. We said we're going to have a frank conversation, you know, we'll touch those spots that are not comfortable. But because we're in this space, it's a neutral venue, you know, university is neutral. There's no strings attached. We're just dealing with the matters as they are so that, you know, they say in my language that if you have a thorn in the foot and you keep saying, you're going to be fine, that thing is going to rot in there and it may rot the whole foot. So if you decide that, you know what, this thorn, I'm going to take the needle, prick myself and get it out, then you'll be fine. Then the food will survive. So if Gibela has, you know, been buying, then that's fantastic. But if you are trying to say Gibela is not bought, you must say so that, you know, we can speak about it in a frank way and say, how do we find each other around this selling and buying? You know, because even Prof. Butala spoke about this issue of, you know, selling and buying issues. And then the other thing was the people action people are not action-oriented. That's what Charles emphasized on. But I think through that committee that we've spoken about and through the projects that are going to be coming through, maybe that will totally change because people will have a sponsor, people will have action-focused research that deals with a specific problem head-on. So maybe that can be addressed. But maybe you can speak to it as well, that even when the guys are maybe in the so that even in the structuring of these things, I don't know who from Messi's team is going to be sitting in that structure, but from the structuring of these things, we make sure that those things are getting the hands dirty. I think that's the point that also came up. And then, of course, on the Ramseri side, you know, in terms of the business readiness level, the market readiness level, there are issues there in terms of how the things are working. Technology readiness level is accelerating very quickly, but the MRL and the BRL is lagging behind. And so you discover that somebody's got a fantastic technology that is working, but the market and the business readiness are not there. So Ezra, what are your views there? How do you think we can unlock this, you know, buying from Gibela and so on and so forth? Or Gibela buying from the incubators?
From the incubators. Thank you very much, Prof, and good day, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity. I think the conversation that or the debate that we're having is quite important, and we have touched on a couple of things I would like to emphasize in a different way, and I would like to paint a picture so that we don't just look at just a small piece of this huge elephant that we have. Rest assured, we have projects. That's given. So we have projects, and I'm saying so because if the challenge for us as Gibela is to go to 6 train sets, which took us a day, and no one in the world has done it, already you can imagine how many challenges we have. So we have projects. Now, you talked about bridging the gap, right? And that's what we need to talk about, and how we ensure that together we use the vehicle called Gibela to achieve it. Now, Gibela says they want to revitalize. Gibela didn't come to South Africa, or didn't happen just to build trains. They want to revitalize the entire value chain of trains. Now, you can imagine how many projects. Just by one question asked by my colleague who used a train, that on its own, it's a challenge. Now, coming back to what we are talking about, there is a couple of things, and I just took note of them. Obviously, there is governance that needs to be in place for us to work together, okay? Why do I say so? With the challenge that we're having on hand now, the best way to say it is it's us running in the woods so fast that we want to get to 6 train sets, and maybe some of the trees we don't see. And that's where you come in, because we will give you all the projects we think we need, but if you get yourself closer to us, you'll realize that, and you can propose some of the things to say, Ezra, you know, I know you want me to do 1, 2, 3. I've seen that and that. For us, as a collective, to achieve the ultimate one, which is 6 train sets a month. And obviously, there is a lot of steps and a lot of procurement processes that we've touched on. But what's important for me is when we put this technical committee in place, there should be a clear governance where we meet regularly. And because on a daily basis, we find challenges. And with those challenges comes a lot of solutions from people who are not in the running. So you'll have fresh view of solution to the problem that we are facing. Now, not to make projects that are going to gather dust. There's so many ways. My friend just close to me, I've worked with him, and he touched on a project that we worked on with TOT regarding jigs. Now that's getting your hands dirty. There we had a project that you had to be intensely involved. There was no time for blah, blah, blah. You needed to see the actual part on the line and being used to produce an ultimate piece that goes into the train, okay, and goes to the train, then people are using it. Ultimately, we all will be using it. And if we can achieve projects that gives out results like that, I think we'll be achieving one of our goals as a collective. Now, how do we do that? Just by me coming here, in the last 5 minutes of me sitting down there, on my phone I probably got 3-4 things that came through that we have a problem with this. So if we can engage and have a forum where we technically discuss what are the potential solutions or problems that are on the table that we can help together, to help each other together, to resolve. Then you know when you part or when you're finished with that project, there is a huge difference in Gibela, in South Africa, and the dream of revitalizing the industry, it's actually happening and you have a hand into it. And your project can be used in other platforms. Now, when I say other platforms, I'm talking about other countries. My colleague Tabiso spoke about when we reach the 6 train sets, which is the ultimate in railway. Other sectors or other companies will be looking at our company and asking the simple question, how did you do it? And if one of your activities and your research and your project is in there, it will be one of them that's been discussed to say, we've done it because we had an issue of this magnitude, and it